Hi everyone, this is Kristine from Mom Vegan Lab and I'm so excited. I'm here today with my friend Sarah-Mai. She was my first one and only vegan friend and she got me started. I remember watching Forks Over Knives and I'm like, okay, this is the answer. This is it, people. Now where do I start? What do I
Right
eat?
now.
Yeah, thank you so much for being here today.
I'm so happy to be here with you.
Thank you. Thank you. I got like a whole sheet of questions for you. Like, should we just start dig in and get going?
Let's go for it.
Okay, let's see. So what is your story? When did you go vegan and why?
So I became vegetarian very early, when I was 3. My parents were apparently, as I've heard it, they were asking what's in everything, like all the foods that we were eating. They were looking into what's in these, what are the ingredients, what's it made of. Apparently my dad had some allergies and they were trying to just identify what those were. And so, I happened to ask what's in a cheeseburger. And when my mom said it was a cow, that was it for me. So I just couldn't fathom that we actually ate animals. So that was it for me. When I was 3, I stopped then. My parents were not vegetarian at the time. They're now vegan. They weren't at the time, and they were concerned that, health wise, would I be okay? And so they took me to my doctor. Really, thankfully, he was an Indian doctor who is very, very familiar with a vegetarian diet. I grew up in Ohio, so it was not very common back in, the 80s, was not super common. And thankfully he was like, yeah, she'll be totally fine. You're okay. Let her, if that's what she wants to do, she'll be okay health wise. And then I didn't go vegan until like 30 years later. That one took a bit longer for me. But yeah, vegetarian since I was 3. My parents are now both vegan. They've had vegan restaurants. They recently retired, but so it's always been a part of my world, of my realm.
Wow. What amazing. I just love hearing that your parents were supportive of that at 3 and didn't just like push that aside as, that's too hard or.
Yeah. I think, my mom is Vietnamese. And so I feel like maybe in Asian cultures, it's not always in all Asian cultures. A full-on vegetarian diet isn't always the norm, but it's at least well known, it's at least in the ether there. And so I think as long as, they checked with my doctor that I would be okay health-wise, are there things they need to know? Because it was unfamiliar to them as well. Yeah, I'm so thankful that they didn't push me, to eat meat.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, because that's what we do, right? It's like, where are you going to get your protein? I'm sorry, this is our only
Absolutely.
option. Yeah.
Absolutely. And if you're unfamiliar with it, and especially your child, you obviously you want to make sure they're taken care of, that they're not going to be, all the misconceptions. Are they going to be malnutritious? Are they going to get what they need? All of those things. So yeah, I was very lucky that, both my parents and my doctor were
Yeah.
supportive.
Like it was meant to be. I love that.
100%. For me, yes, 100%.
What is the biggest change you experienced after going vegan?
So I think it was mostly health wise, because like I said, I've been vegetarian for so long. My skin cleared up a ton. I didn't realize how much dairy wreaks havoc on, especially when people have acne. Um, I would have zits all the time, but I'd have these little bumps all over my face. I would just get these waves of breakouts. And I didn't make that connection. Even after I think I went vegan, I didn't make that connection until I heard Woody Harrelson talk about, when he went vegan, and he would
Oh.
tell people, anyone with acne, be like, just stop eating dairy, you'll clear up in like 3 days. And it's so true. Skin wise, health wise, I didn't really fully realize I was lactose intolerant until I stopped eating dairy. Like, oh my God, I feel great. What is this? Things that you just accept. I feel this way. I guess that's normal for everyone or just for me. And then when you make a change and you feel amazing, you're like, oh, I can feel like this. Whole new level.
Oh, I love all that, because that, like, for me, um, dairy was one of the things that we kind of held on to for the longest time too. And when we kept that out, all of a sudden I didn't have seasonal allergies anymore.
Yes, right.
Like I could breathe, and that was just something I thought I have seasonal allergies, and that's my life.
Yep.
And
Congestion. Yeah, that's another one. Just
yeah,
congestion. Even like my eyes, and I've heard people say this before, like my eyes got, the whites in my eyes got whiter because I think because I'm lactose intolerant. So I was constantly taking in something that my body didn't like.
yeah.
If you don't know that, you have no idea that those symptoms are from that one thing, you know?
Yeah, your body's trying to do everything it can to get it like out of your system. So
Exactly. It's sending you all the signals. You
Mhm.
just have to pay attention.
Yeah,
It's finding that thing though.
yeah.
It's very hard sometimes to find that thing, what it actually is.
Yeah, that's true, because I did go all these different places to get, the one answer. And I mean, I got everything from here, take these, you have to come in daily for allergy shots, and I hate needles. I'm like,
Right.
I was so desperate. So that's what I was considering doing, because no
Yeah.
one, not, well, I think the information is getting out there, but usually if you go to a doctor, they may not suggest like a diet change. Like that's not like their go-to.
When I was in college, I was debating some kind of career in nutrition. And my sister's friend was a pediatrician. She said, oh, why don't you ask, my friend about like what her training was, and just so you can have the conversation. And she said, we only had about 1 to 2 weeks dedicated to dietetics, or nutrition in all of my 8 years of schooling. So I'm probably not the best person to ask. And that
Wow.
response was like eye-opening for me, that
Mhm.
all the doctors, this is the kind of training at that time, that was, I don't know, 20 years ago, but at that time there was nothing. A week or
Mhm.
two in 8 years of school dedicated to what you eat and how it affects your body.
Right.
So yeah,
Mm.
doctor may not be the best place to start your journey.
Yeah, and that's so interesting, right? Because especially after I had our oldest daughter, she was my first child, and I trusted our pediatrician like blindly, whatever he said. And she was going through all these, she had a lot of ear infections, lots of colds. And every time we go in, he would just up the dose of antibiotics or try a different variety. And then it got to the, like we had ran out of options for antibiotics. She kept getting sick. Oh, well, she needs to go and get tubes. And I'm just like, no, okay, this seems extreme. Like that, to me, that didn't seem like the next right thing, So at the time, we actually found a chiropractor that helped with that. But now when I look at my youngest, who's been vegan since birth, she hasn't had any of those issues that my son or my daughter had. Like,
Right.
she's never really sick. I mean, my son had asthma and stomach issues and skin rashes, and that's all gone. Like he doesn't have asthma anymore. Like how? No medicine.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah, food is medicine, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh, makes me so happy. On to my next question. Is your whole household vegan?
No, no. So I live with my husband and my dog. But my husband, he always describes himself as a hopeful pescatarian. He
Hopeful?
strives, he strives to be a pescatarian.
Yeah.
But at home, he's totally vegetarian and mostly vegan. So when we cook at home, it's all vegan. I mean, occasionally I think he has some, local free range eggs from where out on Long Island, but everything else, we eat the same things. So I can imagine it is difficult with mixed households if you have to keep kind of double the things, regular sour cream cheese, whatever it may be, and the vegan version. I imagine that's difficult, but luckily at home, we don't have that issue. It's really easy, and stuff keeps getting better. I feel like, a few years ago, we would try things and, I would just go with it because I'm, yes, I would love for it to taste better, but I'm just thankful to have the option.
Yeah.
Now, finally, we're at the place where he's like, I'm not making a sacrifice. This tastes just as good or better, you know? So
Mhm.
we're finally at a place where I feel like the alternatives are at a spot where you're not making huge sacrifices in flavor and taste or in texture. We actually have all of those things. You just have to, it's trial and error. People
Mhm.
try one kind of vegan alternative to something and they don't like it. And they say, oh my God, this is all horrible. It tastes like cardboard.
Yeah.
And they don't realize, just like non-vegan food, there's really good stuff and there's really bad stuff and there's really mediocre stuff.
Yeah.
You have to find the kind that you like. So, I follow a lot of people on Instagram who try new products. I always look at what's happening with that expo, Natural Foods Expo West. They always have, like, every year they have this big conference where they bring out like all the new vegan food. And you get so excited seeing, like, oh my gosh, they finally have vegan feta. They finally
Yeah,
have
right.
vegan cream, all these things. And so, yeah, it's a lot easier now than it used to be.
Mm. Yeah, I hear all that, and I totally agree. When we first, when I first reached out to you, and my husband and I, Tim, he has always been interested in learning new things and doing new things too. But I'm maybe I get there a little bit faster. So after like watching Forks Over Knives, I was ready to like take out all the meat, all the dairy from our house, and we would basically just have had lettuce at the time, So
Right.
so I had to, and everybody was screaming, like including the kids. It was like it was too fast because I hadn't enrolled them. I hadn't really explained why we were making this change. But I mean, especially kids, they're so compassionate. I mean, if you learned that what you were eating was a cow, like they don't want to do that. We have 3 dogs. Like they know there's no difference. So
Oh,
and then we did, like you said, like we started making all this amazing food. You can have vegan ice cream, vegan milkshakes, what
yes.
do kids like pizza, pasta, all the same things, just without
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. So
I know. It's amazing. I mean, yeah, we've come so far. And I remember when I was a kid, and I couldn't really understand. Like, we went to someone's house who, they were vegetarian, and I saw vegan hot dogs, and I'm like, I don't understand what this is, because even like meat substitutes, I wasn't familiar with. Um, but it's just like the things that we have now. In the city, I'm not sure if you made it there at your last trip, but there's a grocery store called Orchard Grocer. And it is just like, it's heaven. Everything they have there, they have every product that you see that you want your every grocery store to carry, and they have it. And they also make their own food, and it's just killer. And it's just amazing. And especially vegan essentials, you can order. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be in New York City.
yeah.
You don't have to be in a place where they have all of this, even in the Midwest, when I'm in Ohio, you can order from Vegan Essentials. They have everything. And so it's just so accessible and available. And the fact that Impossible and Beyond are in all these chain restaurants, they're in Burger King. It's just so, and I'm not talking about health food.
Yeah.
I obviously I want to eat healthy, but I'm in it for the animals. And so if it's vegan, I'm in. I don't really care what it is. So just the accessibility is just, it blows my mind.
Mhm. Yeah, I definitely don't feel like I'm missing out or anything. I feel like I just, more than anything, I quit. Like I don't view, animals or animal products as food anymore. So going into the
Yes.
grocery store or a restaurant and they serve animals, it's not like I'm tempted or anything.
I
It's
know.
quite the opposite, because
I know.
I'm too, for me, it's like definitely the animals that made it click. Like we watched, Tim and I watched Earthlings together, and like we went through like a box of Kleenexes and came out on the other side, and we're like, oh, okay, so
I
yeah,
know.
that's it.
I know. Yeah, it's the connection. And so many kids do feel it. I think once they realize, I think we do so many things to disguise what we're eating, so we don't think about it. Kids and adults, you don't want to think about it. And so when we do, it just becomes this like moment, but then society reinforces to you, no, this is okay. This
Yeah.
is what we do. And so I'm so thankful for kids when they stick to it and they said, no, this isn't for me. It's just not for me. I don't want to participate in that. I don't want to do that. It just, yeah, those are my people.
I know, right? I think it's so cool. And really, when we think about just the disconnect there, like when I think about all these movies that I watch with the kids, like Babe, the Brave Pig, or even like Finding Nemo, like all these movies about, animals, Ferdinand, like, oh my goodness, like, and then I probably was guilty of that too. I bet we went to like McDonald's after that,
Yeah.
something like that, like the total just like disconnect that.
I know. And even in Nemo, the whole thing is fish are friends, not food. But there's, it's not preaching a vegan message or a vegetarian diet. It's just, it's, yeah, there's a lot of contradiction in our world. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow. Yeah. When you start to think about it, and just like, it's mind blowing, because it's like this, I think her name is, if I not very good with names, but she talks about the carnism, and that is just like this hidden belief system that is like, it's right there, but we can't see it because of tradition and habits and things that everybody else is doing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yes, I think I want to say that her name is Joy. Oh, I'll make sure that I find that information.
Please do. I'd love to hear about that, because I'm always, I try to be very aware of that, of the things that are kind of clouding, because I'm sure there are other things. I kind of awoke to a plant-based diet and lifestyle, but I'm sure there's other things I have not awakened to yet, awoken to. So I'm always trying to find those things that are kind of clouded, by just what we've been taught, what we've been just normalized to. And so I always try to keep an open mind for those things, because you just get into your routine, and you can't be an advocate 100% for every cause. And so there's those things I'm always trying to just be aware.
Yeah.
And hopefully something triggers in me of, oh, maybe there's something I'm not seeing here. Maybe I need to uncover a couple layers, of all the things I've just been told that I've accepted. You just have to question everything.
Oh, I love that. Just like being open to having your heart and soul open to the whole, like, I know enough now to know how little I know.
Oh, that's so good, Kristine. That's so good.
And then like just be open to change, and like, oh my goodness, I didn't even realize that we were doing that. Thank you for like holding up the mirror, and then I can, okay, so how can we shift that? And yeah.
Yes, it's not about perfection. I just think with everything, even with the environment, people will say, we don't need several people, a handful of people doing it 100% perfectly. We need millions and billions of people doing it not perfectly.
Yeah.
The impact would be significantly more. And you and I have even talked about, it's kind of a barrier for both of us personally, of you kind of get stuck in that, I want to do it perfect. And so I won't even start something because my mind hasn't been able to process one little aspect of something. And so I'll hold off. And then I never do the thing. And so it's those things where it's like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just do one thing. That's why I love the concept of Meatless Mondays, because it feels accessible to people. It feels like I can do that. And once you do that, then you realize, oh, I could do this more. There's a lot of things I'm eating already that are plant-based that I just didn't put together, So I think it doesn't have to be perfect. Just that awareness, and even one step, just one step towards something.
Yeah, I love all that, because like in my mind, somebody said like, okay, you start your journey, say in New York, and then the goal is to go to Los Angeles, but then you fall over in Omaha, and but you don't go back to New York. You can just dust yourself off in Omaha and see that, okay, Oh, okay. I made it this far. Fine. Like I don't have to go back there. I'm here.
Yes,
How do I proceed from here?
yes,
And in the
absolutely.
past, what I have done too, I did not only just go back to New York where I started, I went like deep into the depths of the ocean to just like, or start eating, like, because I've gone through, addictions and all that. So then it would be like, well, if I had this one piece, I might as well have 10. And then,
Yes,
you know,
yeah.
just like, why? So what I'm like, is so important to me is like the self-love piece. Like
Yeah.
that is, it's been really been missing in my own life. And I think if we just kind of connect with that and what's good for me, what's good for me is good for you, it's good for everyone.
Yes.
Like,
There's Louise Hay has some really amazing books about everything, and she boils down everything to self-love.
mm,
Have an issue, you have a problem, a conflict, whatever, it's the issue at its core is self-love, a
yeah.
lack of, or you need more, you need
Mhm.
self-acceptance and self-love. And it's just, when you read her books, it's just like, oh my God, yes, it's actually simple, but we've just clouded it with all of our mind chatter and everything, she says comes down to that. And it that resonates for me.
Mhm. Oh, for sure, for sure. Oh, let me see. My next question is, what do you love most about being vegan?
Um, I thought about this a lot, and I think it's the kind of kinship that you feel. If you see someone at the grocery store and you're behind them and their cart is full of vegan stuff, you're like, I already know we have something major in common.
Yeah.
And I'm actually an introvert. And so I can connect with people really easily, but I don't always find those things because I don't always just go out of my way to find them. So just that in itself, with one just bit of information, you can realize you have such a connection with someone. I love that. And the other thing that I thought of is that Henrik, your son, and I have told you and Tim about this, it stays with me because I felt this way when I was a kid and I didn't express it this way. And when he said it, I'm like, that's what I felt. So you had asked him, I think, just what do you love about being vegan, or how does it feel? Something like that.
Mhm.
And he said, you don't feel the sadness
Yeah.
you feel when you eat a dead animal. Yes, that's what I felt, but I couldn't communicate that. I
Mm.
didn't have the words. It wasn't as accepted to be plant-based or even to be vegetarian where I was at the time I was when I was a kid.
Yeah.
And it just, when he said that, it just, yeah, that's it. That's how I've always felt.
Mm.
I don't want that. I feel things a lot. I feel things in me. I feel things around me. I tend to absorb things. So I have to be very aware of what's mine, what's not mine, how to
Mm.
process it. And just him saying that, like, yeah, with animals, you feel that. You can sense, you watch earthlings, you watch those things, and I know they're so hard. And I know why people avoid watching them. You don't want to see that.
Yeah.
But when you put together, when you make the connection that my food is directly coming from that, my
Mhm.
demand for that food is what's causing those animals to go through that.
Mhm.
And I'm going to absorb all of that. Where does that go? Where does that go when that animal feels that fear, the
Mhm.
absolute terror of what's going to happen to me, of being abused, of being mistreated their entire lives, you
Mm.
know? And I know the whole argument about small farms. Yeah, that's totally better than factory farming. Absolutely. But at the end of the day, you're still killing them.
Yeah.
On their last day, you're still killing them
Yeah.
and you're ingesting them. And it's just not necessary now. Where we are in this time and place in history, it's not necessary anymore. And I do think that contributes to just our collective being, our collective consciousness
Mhm.
of how can we have peace when, like, on a daily basis, we're all making these decisions to feed into this system where it's all violence and brutality, and there's no love in that. And so it just, yeah, the sadness that you feel. And even if you don't feel it or you don't make the connection of it, it's there of, you know, participating in that cycle and absorbing that. And so I love that your son said that. It resonated with me just to the highest degree.
Yeah, I think we're all, like you're saying, that we're all empaths in our family too. And
Yes.
and like Henrik, he is so aware, like he refuses to go past the morgue in the grocery store.
Oh,
So that was a little
love
hard. It was a little hard when he was little, because all of a sudden I would lose him, and then I would see where I was, and he would have taken a different route around to get to the vegan section or to the ice cream. But
I
and
love it so much.
he's asked to be moved in restaurants, because we were in like a sushi restaurant, and all the the dead fish was right there. So and I'm so happy that I'm in a place to just honor those feelings in him, and knowing that there is a different way, there's a better way. We don't have to, you know, because I knew that too growing up, but I had to have these like blinders on.
Yeah.
Because I thought I had to eat meat.
You were conditioned to think that. And so you just, yeah, we're reinforced every day, and we're told we're very odd, you know. Oh my God, that must be so hard. That must be so difficult. What do you eat? How do you do this?
Yeah.
And you know, you hear people say it, but you're thinking, I don't want to kill animals and ingest them.
Yeah.
But I'm the weird one.
I'm the weird one. Yeah, good point.
That moment, you're like, I don't understand how I'm the weird one.
Yeah.
It's not weird. It's just different. And there's a different way. There's a different way where other beings don't have to suffer. And so why not choose that way? You know, it just comes down to that.
Okay, you sold me. I'm on. Oh my goodness. Okay, let's see. So if somebody else feels as inspired as I am, what advice would you give to somebody that's just starting out?
So we did already touch on this, and I always think it comes down to, it doesn't have to be perfect. I always hear or read, Kathy Freston always says, you know, somebody comes to her and says, oh, I could be vegan, except I love cheese, or I love sushi, or I love whatever that one thing is that you're like, I can't do it because of this.
Yeah.
That is fine. Do it, accept that one thing.
Yeah.
Even if it's 2 things, 3 things, because you're still making progress. So you're still going towards that. You're still doing less harm to your body, to the planet, to obviously the animals. You're killing less animals. And so I just think it's that whole thing in our minds. It's like all or nothing. And it is almost never all or nothing. It's almost always a spectrum. And if you're like, you know, I kind of wish I could do that. I wish I could be on this side of the spectrum, but I'm here. You are still moving here. You're still getting closer. You don't have to stay here. You know, it's just always, it's always a journey, and it's okay if it's not perfect. And I think that again about self-love, you don't have to beat yourself up if you made a mistake, if you gave into your temptation, if you gave into all the reinforcements that society is giving you. It's okay. You can start over tomorrow. You can start over with your next meal, with your next choice. You know, it does not have to be perfect.
Oh, yes, I totally agree with that. And like as a fellow perfectionist, that was definitely holding me back.
Yeah,
for a long time. You know, there are these graphics, I guess, I think I saw it on Facebook, where the ladder, like the steps between the ladders are like this.
Yes.
Or you can choose to do this. What are you more likely to do? You know?
Either way, it still gets you there. It still gets you on your way there. It's whatever works for you, as long as you're, you know, moving towards the way you want to move.
Yeah, I love that, because I think for us it felt I love that, because for the first things we cut out were things that I had always been really honestly like grossed out about, which was all red meats, chicken. Oh my goodness, that reminds me of, I was going to a farm sanctuary, and I got to hold an actual live chicken. And like his name was Fonzie. And like the shape, I've held that shape so many times, but without the life in it, you know, and like some of my heart, and this little creature was so afraid at first, like his heart just, I could feel it. And then I was petting him like a dog. And then he fell asleep in my arms, and like, they most certainly don't want to become our food.
No, absolutely. And I think that people, you start to view, like you said, your dog, and you think people can make that disconnect because they're not around them all the time. They're not around chickens on a daily basis. They don't see them. They make that disconnect, and you kind of think, oh, chickens don't behave like dogs. But when you go to a sanctuary and you see them, you're like, they kind of do. All of them kind of do that. You see cows snuggle, you can see elephants snuggle, you can see all of them behave that way. And you just think there's no way, there's no way they are just here for us to eat senselessly, And so, just making that connection.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm doing this, the 21-day summit that's going to start in June. And I have 2 different farm sanctuaries that I'm going to be interviewing. And I'm so excited to show people. And they're all over the country too. So I bet if you just type in farm sanctuary near wherever you are, and there will be one within an hour or 2. And
absolutely. And they always have those visiting hours where you can go and just, even if people might think it's something fun for their kids to do, even if you're not vegetarian or vegan, but I think just the more we see of that, the more it just becomes a part of our, of what we're seeing and what we're ingesting. You start making those connections, and especially kids start making those connections. I'm so all about that. I love seeing when people go to animal sanctuaries and just, you see the level of that they're just like your dog, your cat, that they like to play, that they like to interact, just things that we don't envision a chicken or even like an ostrich, just random animals you don't expect them to do. And, just making that connection and that kinship, and just seeing this is another soul, another sentient being, Yeah.
Oh yeah, one of my favorite sanctuaries is Esther. I think she called like Esther the Wonder Pig.
The Wonder Pig.
They thought they bought a mini pig, and she's like, woo!
Enormous. And thank God they had the, the ability to still keep her, because I think they thought she was going to be a small pig, and they had the ability to feed her, and the resources and the means and the space. And I think now they have like a full sanctuary themselves. And what a calling. I know, it's amazing. I know, I've followed her since the beginning.
Yeah, she totally changed the trajectory of their life. I think they lived in a small house and then moved out into the country. I'm like, okay, you're leading the way here.
I know, and they made their life all about her, which I just love that.
Yeah, this is like letting compassion and love be our guide, right? Just we really know what the right thing to do is. We just have to keep listening in.
I know. Yep.
Okay, next question. And do you have any shopping or pantry tips that you would like to share?
So I think for me, everything is about condiments and sauce. Because even when I'm like, for me, and it's not just like when you're at home. When I'm at home, I have everything I could ever want, vegan, anything I could make. But when I'm out, when you're eating out and it's not a particularly very, veggie friendly place, I'm like, okay, what sauces can I make? what, how can I make this interesting? Because I mean, we've all been to a place where you're like, okay, I can eat salad and fries because I'm with, people I want to spend time with, and this is where we're going, and they don't have a lot of options for me. So everything for me is like, do you have, sweet chili sauce? Do you have chimichurri? Do you have balsamic reduction? Balsamic reduction, I can eat on everything. Also that garlic chili crisp that's everywhere. You can get it, usually Asian grocery stores used to have it, and now it's just everywhere. And it's like crispy garlic with chilies in sauce, and it makes everything just amazing. So for me, especially when eating out, you have to be really creative. I think it's all about sauce, condiments, because eating vegan is usually very flavorful, especially because you're doing creative things with vegetables and herbs and things. But oh, we've all had really bad experiences where a restaurant thinks they're being really creative with vegan, and then it ends up so bland and so awful because they just don't know how to cook with vegetables that way without meat.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have
Yeah.
to learn to be creative when you're eating out. And yeah.
Yeah, I love that. And I think that was one of the things that I tried to make in the very beginning, all about having the equipment too. Like we had a food processor and I tried to make a smoothie and it was more like a chewy. Like it was, what's wrong here? But I mean, that's the thing, like we had so many trials and errors, like just the things that we made in here, just like, well, that's not gonna work. But then then we keep trying and we're like, seriously, like in here laughing, like giving each other high fives, like we're total nerds. Like try this, you have to try to stop what you're doing. You know, I figured out how to make, you know, cheese sauce today, or, you know, this.
Yeah, oh my God, cashews. Thank God for cashews. And yeah, even equipment, like you can buy refurbished Vitamixes. I know that's not always in everyone's budget, but refurbished makes it a lot more accessible. Or else soak your cashews. So there's so much, like, I'm so glad there are so many resources and so many blogs out there, and even like your content of you just saying, you know, this is what we tried, this is how we got there, you know, we tried this recipe. I love seeing vegans share just like what other recipes they've tried, you know, and I love seeing when they've messed up. You know, when they say, you know, oh God, I tried this, I didn't soak the cashews and it was like I had to really chew it, it wasn't like a creamy sauce, it wasn't, you know. So yes, hopefully we can all learn together, because it's really the basis of cooking has been so meat focused, meat and dairy focused, that, you know, we're having to learn how to do all these things and recreate flavors and textures that everyone is familiar with and make them out of different things. And so it's like, it's a science. And I love seeing what people are doing now and just how they're doing it with whole foods, with, you know, nothing that's been too processed. I love seeing that. I mean, I love processed foods too, but I love seeing when people are being really inventive. Isa Chandra Moskowitz is one of my favorite chefs. And, you know, just about everything she recreates is done in a pretty healthy, sustainable, you know, whole foods, vegetable-based way. And I have never tried a recipe from her that wasn't just stellar. You know, so I think it's just getting the knowledge. It's out there. It's just, you do have to do, it's not in your world. You do have to do a little bit of research to find it. But there's so many available resources now. So if you have the slightest interest, you know, you can find it.
Exactly. And that's what I found so amazing, that like on Pinterest, you can find all these different recipes. You just type in whatever it is you want to eat and just add vegan, or doing Google. Or you can go on Instagram or Facebook and type in vegan recipes, and you're gonna have so many recipes that you don't even know what to do with. So just, and I also think like veganizing your favorites. So you already probably know what kind of foods you like. Like one of our favorites is chili. So then we just do it with lentils instead of ground beef, and just like anything. And that's where all the fun experimentation comes into. And I know I said it before, but the great thing about vegan cooking is that you can taste test from beginning to end. You don't have to worry about, you know, the dangers have been cooked out of the flesh. You know, you can just like, okay, let's try it at this point, and then, okay, they maybe need a little bit more of that, and then, you know, it's just
absolutely fun. No raw eggs, raw chicken, or things that you can't touch the cutting board, or you know,
Yes, that was a big day when we got rid of that cutting board, and just like we have Tim celebrated, we have a little sign that says like animal friendly kitchen now. So it's like 100%, like the surfaces we don't have to worry.
I love that. I love that.
Oh, let me see. I think we've And you had a recipe that you shared with me too that we'll send out. You want to tell me a little bit about that?
Yes. So I mentioned before, my mother is Vietnamese and she is a chef as well. And so she has provided her recipe for vegan pho. If you are not familiar with pho, it's a traditional Vietnamese soup. It's usually, in a lot of places in Vietnam, it's served as breakfast. My husband loves it for breakfast. It's a bit much for me for breakfast, but
Oh, cool.
so these are things that you would never think to put together, but I would never think to put together because there's some sweet things in this stock that I would think this is going to taste like drinking a candle. That's what my husband always says, like my chai, it's like drinking a candle, which I love. But so it's, you've got your vegetables, but you also put in cinnamon stick, star anise, you put in nutmeg or cardamom, you put in ginger, and it just sits and simmers for hours. And in my recipe, I say about 3 hours. You don't have to wait that long, but it will taste so much better if you wait. And then, it's a traditional just rice noodle soup. We like to saute, vegan chicken and just slice it on top as a garnish. Always cilantro, green onions, lots of hoisin sauce, which is a fermented plum, and lime. So it's one of my favorite things to eat. And it's so easy to veganize. And a lot of times when you go out, you go to an Asian restaurant, they have a vegan version of pho. It will usually be pretty bland.
Oh.
I've had exceptions, but because my mom is Vietnamese, because I grew up eating it, I know what really good vegan pho can taste like. And this recipe is so non-intimidating. It is not precious. You can mess things up. You can, continue to add water and stock and just continue to, as it boils down, to your flavoring. And so I hope people will try this recipe because it makes it super accessible, super easy. And it's so flavorful. It's really, really comforting. So
I can't wait to try it. You mentioned like a vegan chicken. What is your favorite brand for that?
Yeah, so I like a lot of stuff out there right now. Because my parents have had restaurants, we still get kind of access to their network of, wholesale distributors. And so the kind that we always have is called Delight Soy. That's what I always have in my freezer because my parents would give it to me in bulk. But, Gardein has really good, and especially like they have this, I think it's called Ultimate now. It's like Gardein Ultimate.
We try those. That's
it's
good.
like Reddit. It's so good. My husband dies for that stuff. And then there's Daring Chicken, which we just tried recently, is really, really good. But there's, Boca, Impossible, Beyond, like all that stuff is really good stuff now.
Just have to try your way, see what you like, right?
Absolutely. And you could also do it with tofu. You could put seitan in there. You could put tempeh in there, whatever you feel like.
Yeah, we got a question here. Where's the famous recipe? I'm going to send it out in an email with the replay of this on Friday. So hold your horses or don't let them go free. It's coming on Friday.
Vegan jokes.
That's so funny. Let's see, we actually have some more questions here. Sarah-Mai, you mentioned being in it for the animals. Were you around animals when you were younger, and do you have pets now?
I wasn't really around animals when I was younger. We always had either a dog or a cat, not at the same time, but and I have a dog now. I have a French bulldog, and she's a girl named Rufus. She's 6, and this is something that I actually still struggle with. She is not plant-based, and I know there's a lot of conflicting opinions and a lot of thoughts around this. I would love her to be plant-based. Even if it's not vegan, I would love for her to be vegetarian. And Kristine and Tim, I know your dogs are vegan. I struggle personally because she is a really picky eater.
Mm.
She is not food motivated, like most dogs. A lot of dogs will just eat everything and anything. She is not that way. She is super picky. She hates peanut butter, which I cannot even fathom, especially for a dog. But yeah, so this is something I'm still struggling with because I would really like her to be plant-based, and
Yeah.
it's just been a struggle, but that's something that I'm continuing to work on. And every time I see new dog food that comes out that is plant-based, I try it and I try incorporating a little bit.
Yeah.
She hasn't been super receptive, but I will never stop trying.
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
actually, again, for the Vegan Curious Summit that I'm doing in June, yesterday I interviewed Mimi Kirk, and she has not only done a lot of cookbooks for humans. Yesterday, she told me that she also made one for dogs.
Oh, I love that. I
Wow.
love that. I will
So maybe
definitely
look into that. I thought that was, she said it was like trued and tested and approved by veterinarians and.
Yes. I'm all for that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, super cool. Let's see. Next question. I feel like I'm in here. It's so cool that your parents are vegan too. Did you influence them, or did they have their own journey to taking the steps to going vegetarian and vegan?
Both. I would like to say it's all because of me. I like to say that I influenced them in some way. So my mom is a chef, vegan chef. You know, she is. She's Vietnamese, and so she's very classically kind of trained in Asian cooking as well as French cooking because there's so much crossover there. And she kind of just fell into it. My entire life they've owned restaurants. Not all of them were vegan. They started out not being vegetarian at all. It was a super meat heavy restaurant that I grew up with, just being a part of, and I just didn't partake in any of the the meat. But they got to be vegetarian probably when I was middle school, high school, and then they actually went vegan before I did. So I feel like they influenced me to then become vegan. So it kind of was a two-way street. So, but they got to veganism, I think, on their own. I think I helped them with vegetarianism and kind of see that. But they got to veganism on their own. And then, them having restaurants and my mom being a chef, they made it really easy for me to grow up that way and to just continually evolving. And my mom, I mean, the saint that she is, at any time that I missed something, she would try to recreate it. She didn't want me to be without anything. And so even when she wasn't vegetarian or vegan, she would make sure that she found a way to recreate something I could eat that I was craving, that I wanted. And she's always done that. So yeah, I won the lottery with my parents.
Beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
I feel like that's what we try to do for our kids too. We just don't want them to feel like they're ever missing out, that they're making this choice out of their goodness of their hearts, and they shouldn't not be like a normal kid, so we always make sure that there's something for them. And
yes, and they will remember that. They will remember that you did that for them, I promise.
Let's see if we have more questions. Okay, plant-based food is getting easier to find everywhere, but a lot of us around the country are jealous of the access you have in New York. So tell us, what's the most memorable, mind-blowing New York City meal you've had in the past year, other than Spicy Moon?
Other than Spicy Moon. So it hasn't been in the last year, but it's on my list because 11 Madison Park is like a kind of fine dining, high experiential restaurant. And we went maybe 2 years. It was right before COVID. And they will do, at the time they would do a fully plant-based, 12 course tasting menu for you. And since then, they have gone 100% plant-based.
Ooh.
I mean, this is like one of the best restaurants in the world. And they recently came out, maybe probably within the last year, and have said, you know, we want to go where the future is going, and the future is going with plants.
Mm.
And I think they're really in it a lot for climate change, which thank God they are. It's amazing. And I feel like they're really kind of paving the way for other restaurants to do this. And I have not been there since they've gone 100% plant-based, and I'm dying to. I would love to see, you know, how that's changed since last time we've been there. And, you know, I had a tasting menu, and now there's so many more options. And that's what everyone, you know, just being there, that's what everyone else is around me is eating plant-based as well. And, you know, a lot of times plant-based gets in that kind of hippie granola, California kind of grape nuts space. And I love that. I'm fully embrace that, but I love seeing the other side as well, and seeing really high-end restaurants. Even, you know, we went to Alinea when we still lived in Chicago, and they did a fully plant-based menu for me. I love experiencing those, you know, whenever it's possible, whenever we can. Just seeing the other side of what these chefs who have access to everything and have the knowledge to do, just to see what they can do. So that's on my list, is to go back to 11 Madison Park if I can get a reservation in New York. That's at the top of my list.
Oh, now I'm hungry. That sounds amazing. I want to see if there are any more questions, or if you have any questions, you're welcome to ask them in the chat. I love that you were mentioning about, because really what I see is that there are like 3 different major reasons for making the switch to a plant-based vegan diet. And is, you know, for the animals, not wanting to hurt animals, for our health, and then for the environment. And the environmental aspect, I didn't know anything about that. But I learned a lot from watching Cowspiracy, and just how, I mean, now when I'm allowing myself to think about it, just like these like ginormous factory farms, like, I mean, TMI, but like, where does all the feces go? Like, where does
Exactly.
they just like go straight into their streams? And
Yes.
it's just, I don't really think about it. You know,
No, we don't really think about it, because we've kind of been programmed not to think about it. And I think government has been probably paid off not to think about it, not to investigate, not to, you know, why it's illegal to film in any of these spaces. Why would that be? You know, because they don't want you to see that. You'd probably make a different decision. And so it's truly, I think it's the Earthwatch Institute did a study years ago, and actually found that the amount of pollution and, you know, climate change from animals, from directly exploiting animals, eating animals, you know, any kind of that agriculture around animals, raising them as livestock, was way higher than any other, you know, estimates that have been put out there. I think they were estimating it as like 50 or 60% was attributed directly to raising livestock for consumption. And I think when that came out, it was buried by so many things. And people would come out and say, oh no, I think it's only like, you know, 19%. But I mean, they had really good research at the time that I think was likely purposefully buried, and people just not making that connection. I think thankfully people are kind of coming to that realization now. But I think, you know, other than those 3 reasons, there's also what we've kind of hinted at before, is kind of that just elevating our collective consciousness of the planet, of just, you know, again, you know, when we're a part of that system with all of those animals suffering, and keeping them, you know, imprisoning them and forcibly impregnating them. I don't know if people truly understood the process of dairy, if they would choose to participate in that. I don't know if they know how horrific it is. And, you know, the baby cows then becoming, if they're male, they become veal, you know, just discarded, just thrown out. I mean, even baby chicks, if they're male, usually they're just, you know, just completely just thrown in the trash alive. I mean, it's just, it's it's mind-boggling to think of what we do, and just that cycle of that's our world, even if you're not actively participating it, you're still absorbing that energy, you're still a part of that. And so I think just making that decision to, I'm not going to contribute, I'm going to do everything I can to not contribute to that suffering, I think it just continually just takes us to a different place, just continues to elevate us, collectively. So I think that's also obviously something not many people talk about.
Yeah.
But energetically, it makes sense. Even if you just think of things as energy, it makes sense. So I hope that becomes part of our conversation going forward.
Yeah, I love that. And also what comes to mind, and I know that's something that Tim was he was the one that first brought it to my attention. If you think about the people working at these slaughterhouses, how, you and I were talking about being empaths, like you had to just like turn off that part of yourself to be able to do your job. And I'm sure, I can only imagine what that does to that person leaving, and how just seeing the fear and the tears and just the screams. And then you're supposed to go back into life and be normal and empathetic to people around you, or to, I mean, it's.
And how do you think that affects their daily life and their decisions, and unfortunately, those jobs are unfortunately, people have to take those jobs, whatever circumstance they might be in. They might not have other options, not everybody has the luxury of choice.
Yeah.
And so you just think of them participating in that, and like you said, going into their daily lives, and how must they feel about everything else, what they're absorbing. I fully have compassion for that situation, and those people that are doing that.
Oh, yeah. And that's what I feel is so empowering about being vegan, because I feel like maybe I can't help that person in particular right now, but what I can do is I can change what I put on my plate for my next meal. And that's going to have a ripple effect. The demand's going to go down. I mean, it's just, for me, like, it's so empowering, just like making small changes at home, how we, like grassroots, we can just change and heal the world, together.
And I think it's the thing of just, you think everyone has that, like, I'm just one person, what difference is it going to make? But I think you never understand the full impact that you have. Even people that you don't realize you're influencing, even just by, a few conversations you may have with someone, even by them just watching what you're doing. And so I really do think it starts with you. You can only really control you. And so, we can continue to help, that conversation and put it out into the awareness. But just doing it for yourself, it will have implications that you're not even aware of.
Yeah, and like you influencing me, and here we are years later, and I'm like, just like, woohoo, and the first time I
never would have dreamed. I never would have dreamt it.
Yeah, I thought you were so weird. Like, what's she eating? Like, why isn't she eating real food?
You and most others. Yeah. It's understandable. And it's just because of what you've been presented with. We just accept what we're presented with. And so it's just, until you have that one instant of exposure to something else, then it just kind of sparks that, it plants that seed. Yeah. And so I think even if you think you're not getting through to people, I know you don't want to be preachy. You just want to say, this is how I live my life. This is by example. If this feels like it's good for you, I'm happy to talk to you about it. But you just don't realize that even just planting the seed, somebody that, in years, it could just blossom into something you never thought of. And so I think it's, no matter how small, it's important. It's valid.
Yeah, and I think too, like, that's what I was going to ask, like, if anybody has any questions, if they can reach out to you after this, because that's the joke about vegans. If you get, all they talk about is veganism, and I love it when people reach out and ask me questions. I could talk about it like all day. So
I do too. I'm happy. I mean, this is my passion in life. You know, so any questions around animals in general, if you want to share cute animal videos with me, I'm down for it. Any questions about, you know, about anything related to veganism, plant-based, whatever. Yes, recommendations. I love giving recommendations of, you know, things I've eaten, of places I've traveled to that has good vegan food, vegan friendly people, what have you. I'm more than happy to.
Wonderful. So where can people find you?
Probably most easily on Instagram, SarahMai, at SarahMai, SarahMai.
Easy peasy. Well, wonderful. I seriously feel like I can talk to you all day, but I guess we should be doing other things too.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for everything. Like, no words for how grateful I am for you and for planting that seed and for being here with us today.
Oh, you're so welcome. I adore you and your whole family, as you know. Thank you. This was really fun.
Thank you. Bye.